of you and your work and your words. You're such an inspiration. So for those of you that don't know Audrey, I'd like to read a little bit about her so you learn a little bit about who Audrey is. And then we'll just have a conversation. Audrey Flack is an internationally recognized painter and sculptor and pioneer of photorealism. She is the first photorealist painter whose work was purchased by the Museum of Modern Art for its permanent collection. Among the major museums around the world, her work also resides in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, the Whitney Museum of American Art, and the National Museum of Women in the Arts and the Cameron Art Museum, among others. Additionally, she is the first woman artist, along with Mary Cassatt, both of whom are in our collection, to be included in Jansen's History of Art text. Audrey Flack has taught and lectured extensively, both nationally and internationally. There are numerous books on her work, and she is the author of 3 books. I personally am waiting for her memoir. I can't wait to read it. Ms. Flack earned a graduate certificate in fine arts from the Cooper Union in 1951. She also received a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from Yale and attended New York University's Institute of Fine Arts. In May of 2015, she received an honorary doctorate degree to Clark University. Currently, Audrey lives and works both in East Hampton and in New York City. And there's a new documentary about her life and work called Queen of Hearts, Audrey Flack, which is wonderful. I just watched it this summer virtually through the Ashland Film Festival. You can actually watch it. The Sonoma International Film Festival has it on its list online, July 30th through August 2nd. Welcome, Audrey. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. So now I've just learned something. It's going to be up on July 30th.
So the Sonoma International Film Festival, the dates, I don't know exactly which date, but the festival is July 30th through August 2nd, and Queen of Hearts is going to play.
And I guess you just scan into the festival and they tell you when.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad you liked it. Thank you for that nice.
You're so welcome. So Audrey's work, Medea, is in our collection, and she's also featured in our upcoming exhibition, She Persists, which features women artists from our collection, and with a special focus on the obstacles and experiences that women artists have to overcome and that are different than their male counterpoints. So I wanted to start. So that's the lens I'd like to use for our conversation today. I'd like to start the conversation, Audrey, if you could tell us a little bit about your experience in the 1950s, painting and meeting artists in this male-dominated field like de Kooning and Pollock, and being recruited by Joseph Albers to go to Yale. What was that like for you?
Oh my. Well, you know, I never thought I was a woman artist. I thought I was an artist. Mm-hmm. And I was not aware of differences until Marcia Tucker, who was the founder of the new museum, and she was a great feminist. She's now dead, unfortunately, but she was a curator at the Whitney and had trouble at the Whitney, was ousted, really. But she started consciousness raising groups, and I was in one of the very first ones. And that's where you examined your life. What was it like to be a woman? How did you feel about your body? What about money? What did you do? Did you earn money? Did you give it to your husband? And I remember saying, I'm having a one-man show. And they pounced on me. And they said, would any man say he's having a one-woman show? And I thought, of course. Yeah. So from that day on, I was aware of language. And I say, I'm having a solo show or a one-woman show. But it was in the very nature of our beings that we just accept things. And I liked men. And the neighborhood I grew up in was pretty bourgeois. It was Washington Heights in Manhattan. And I didn't have much respect for the women. None of them worked. They cooked and shopped and played card, canasta, whatever they did. But my father went out to work, and my brother, you know, he was exciting, and I thought, well, it's better to be a man. I have come to love and respect women. I think women are the greatest. And I think that this world has to be saved by women. And I really believe it's up to us to really do something, because I don't think they get it. You know, and even though I love men, I married 2 men, I think we've really got the genes and a kind of different understanding that I don't think they have. Somebody sent me an email about, was it the places that are doing well with the pandemic? And it's places that where the women are mayors.
Right.
And they also say that people who live longer are going to women doctors. So, you know, women are terrific, but it was something that the first time I realized that I was a woman artist is when there was a picture on the cover of Art News, or one of the art I think it was Art News, of all of the photorealists. And there I was half their size, because I'm not big, you know, I'm little. And I'm holding a carrying bag. I'm looking down, and then the reviews started coming out, and the reviews, and all of these guys were painting like Chuck Close was painting, very unemotional, deadpan faces. The rest of them were painting cars and motorcycles, or street scenes with no people, or in Bechdel's wonderful paintings. There was a car on an empty street, maybe with one deadpan person. And here I was, emotional colors. I'm painting World War II. I'm painting weeping Macarenas. And I got brutalized. The male critics wanted to kill me for it. And I couldn't understand it. Here I was with these guys. They were my friends. We were all interested in color. We were interested in photography, and that was breaking the rules. I was using an airbrush, which was forbidden, but I was a woman. And just by being a woman, just by wearing color and loving jewelry, I'm wearing Medea jewelry, by the way, that was not good. I was being judged by critics, journalists, historians, and the other artists. That's when I realized I was a woman.
Yeah.
I was a woman. I mean, I realized I was a woman when I had babies and, you know, had to work and do all kinds of things. It's a big question, Heather.
I know.
It's a very big question.
I know. There's this wonderful through line through all of your work, and you're such a varied artist, starting with abstract expressionism through photorealism, to your sculptural work, and now you're back to painting. And there's this through line of the story of women that is very relatable, and to me personally, and resonates with me deeply, and makes me think deeply about my own life. I wanted to ask you a question because I'm a mom right now, and you're a mom. You have 2 children, and through all of this, while you were working and making incredible art, you were also raising your children, one that has severe autism. And in your film, you talked about how you didn't feel that you could tell the other artists that you were a mother. And I wondered if you could talk about that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you bring it up, because then you could not say that you had children. That until then, meaning the days of abstract expressionism, and further along too. I until recently, because you were considered less of an artist, you were a mother, And, you know, it has yet to be examined, and I touch on it in the book I'm writing, how a lot of these men treated their children, treated their wives. You cannot believe what some of them did. You would not like their work anymore. And, you know, well, take de Kooning, for example. The image of de Kooning, and he's a good-looking man, really good-looking. And I knew his daughter, Lisa. And he was charming and funny. He was horrible to his daughter, horrible in many, many ways that I will not go into, but verbally abusive and insulting. He was a drop-dead alcoholic, and he was mean when he was an alcoholic. Lisa wound up killing herself. That doesn't come out. But Medea, you know, she was bad, right? Jezebel was bad. Eve was bad. But when you look at what some of these men did, Rodin, don't even start me on Rodin. I wrote a song about Camille Claudel when she sings about what Rodin did to her. He was a terrible man. And much of the art, Picasso, do you know 3 of his wives committed suicide? Picasso's also a bad man. And so he paints pictures of women crying, women that he's brutally destroyed. And we accept a lot of this without question. Anyhow, to get back to the question of being a mother, you didn't say it. And I had a child with special needs. You know, I have a child who I love dearly, who took a lot of my time and energy. And God forbid you'd mention having a disabled child. You couldn't do that. So thank God, and blessings on all of you who are mothers, who aren't mothers, but all of you who understand the plight and the feelings of what it is to bring up a child like that.
Yeah. Audrey, thank you. I heard you say in your film, you said there was a footage or a clip of you talking about feminism, and you said, "I'm not a feminist artist, I'm a feminist who is an artist." And I loved that so much. Can you talk about that? And can you talk to us about what feminism means to you?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring it up, because from here right now, I'm thinking that I haven't really ever been written about or described as a feminist. I haven't, but I am, you know, and when feminism started to gain power, feminists were angry. A lot of them hated men. It was a burn the bra time. And I wasn't that kind of feminist, even though I think some of them were terrific. But that wasn't my feminism. And nobody ever really dealt with my kind of feminism, you know. But I look back now, and I have carried that banner for centuries, for decades of my life. And it took the form of acknowledging, well, we know that it took the form of redemption for women like Medea. I love Medea even more. Can you imagine saying I love Medea, the woman who's hated by everybody? I love her. Wait till you hear about her. And I love Medusa. Daphne, you know, so I started creating images of these women. That's easy to see more of feminism. Where it is more difficult is in the very colors I used, as opposed to the other photorealists. The subject matter. I'm not ashamed of wearing this. you know, that was looked down upon. Lipstick, you know, emotional, weeping Madonnas with tears. You had to be cool. Photorealists were cool, unemotional, removed, opposite of me. So I'm glad you bring it up because I am an ardent feminist, and more so as time goes by. I really do think we're terrific.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's something about even your photorealism work. To me, you express things that through your work that may be considered taboo or not appropriate subjects for art. And for me, that makes me feel free to find my own voice. And I think you have made younger women artists free to find their own voices too through your trailblazing work.
Well, you've all got to gain power, because I remember when I was thrilled, I was still married to my ex-husband, who was a Jason. You know, he was not a good guy. And I was very poor, and I had these 2 children. And finally, I was selected to be in the Documenta. I think it was Documenta 11. I don't remember which number. Well, Documenta is a major European show. And the man came to my studio, the curator, Jean-Christophe Amon, and he picked out my Macarenas. And my Macarenas are all these weeping Madonnas. Well, you know, I'm weeping for my child. I'm weeping. And that was the connection, which I had not realized. And I think a couple of months before the show, they kicked me out. And they put in, I was replaced by a painter who painted old cars, rusting in a parking lot. I think they were very good paintings, by the way. But that's what I was up against, you know, being knocked down over and over again. And there weren't any women in power to rescue me. And the women in power were the angry, who had a degree of power, were the angry feminists who were doing a totally different kind of work. So it's been rough. And you all will have a rough road because we're not there yet.
Right.
So
I want to transition to talking about your sculptural work so we can talk about Medea. And you're talking about women in power. To me, when I look at your work, your sculptures are about the power of women, right? Your goddesses, your mythical women, they are strong, powerful, athletic bodies. And I can show some images in a minute, but I wanted to know, and you've done so many, you've done public commissions, you've done so many of these. And I'm just wondering, what was your interest in goddesses and redeeming these mythical figures? If you could talk about that a little bit, and we can talk a little bit about the redemption of Medea as well.
Oh, my goodness, the redemption of Medea and Medusa. Well, I don't remember how it happened, but it's interesting, Heather, because my life pattern, and this is just how it was, how it is, I'm always like 20 years ahead of the curve. That's it. I mean, sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's a curse. Like if you get a stock 20 years early, you're nowhere, you know, you got to do it. But I was interested, I was sick of seeing these generals on horses. Look what's happening. Somebody just wrote an article, by the way, about what happened to my Queen Catherine. Mine was the first statue to fall. And actually it fell before it even got completed because of the Black Lives Matter. But I was sick of these generals on horses with guns, swords. And if there was a woman, she was looking up, starry-eyed, with one breast hanging out to make her a little more attractive. And I wanted to put women out there. I wanted to change to balance the planet, you know? to put the feminine principle up there with the masculine, to save the earth. And I did it a lot. I did it a lot. I was awarded several commissions. And people love the statues. They still do. When I did Catherine, Queen Catherine was a Portuguese princess. And she was sold, traded in marriage, which they all were, to King Charles II of England. She became Queen of England. Nobody knows about little Queen Catherine. Queen Catherine was a very good, sweet, innocent woman, a virgin, dark-skinned, Portuguese, olive skin, black hair, not too pretty, according to British standards. So she gets traded off because, you know why the British drink tea? Catherine brings trade routes to India. The Portuguese drank tea. So with Catherine comes entrance. That's how the British get into India. A lot of power. King Charles now, who she marries, has 14 mistresses, children with every one of them. He's screwing around like crazy. And he's sophisticated. She falls in love with him, not unlike Medea with Jason. And he said, well, she's not too bad looking. She'll pass. And he marries her. And she has trouble having a baby. She has miscarriages. He, in the meantime, is having babies with everybody right in front of her. She's heartbroken. I don't want to go into the whole story. She is a good, pious woman, very religious Catholic. So good that at the end of his life, he apologizes to her for his behavior. He begs her forgiveness. He loves her. They try to assassinate her, whatever. But Catherine, the Portuguese wanted to make a statue. They love Catherine. They're very proud of her. And the way the French gave the Statue of Liberty to us in the United States, the Portuguese decided they would give Catherine. Why? The borough of Queens in New York was named after Queen Catherine. Did you know that? I didn't know that. So Queens is named after Catherine. New York City is named after her brother-in-law, the Duke of York. Brooklyn is named after her husband, King Charles. So, hey, the Portuguese, they say, we're going to give Queen Catherine. And they have an international competition, which I enter. I say, you know, what an opportunity. I could put a beautiful, loving, kind woman out there to heal this messed up planet. And I win. I'm in ecstasy. And I create this statue. Now, it was going to be almost as big as the Statue of Liberty. You imagine how happy I was. So I devoted my life to it, but I wanted a face of the new millennium. I wanted to create a face that could be Black, white, Hispanic, Sephardic. So as I took the statue up in scale, because you win with a maquette. A maquette is a small version that they crit and they look at, and they, look at all the other artists, and I won with a small version. And at first I was true to her face. And then I thought, I want a face that every young girl could see themselves. And I worked very hard. And I happened to have a Black family. My mother's sister married a Black man. at a time when you could be lynched. Well, my black cousin, who looks like Diana Ross, who I adore, posed for me. And I got a gorgeous face. So there's a small maquette, then I did a 4-foot one, then I did an 11-foot one, and I was working on a huge one. And with every sculpture, the face changed. The lips got thicker. She had bunches of curls here. Well, the curls became a combination of Shirley Temple curls and dreadlocks. Tell you, it was really good. But I'm cutting it short. I don't want to take your time with the whole thing. Portugal had slaves in the 17th century. Catherine never owned a slave. And in her will, she leaves money to free women and slaves. But that didn't matter. Al Sharpton attacked the statue. They had a whole group with buttons with a slash. And the irony is everybody, including the reporters who came to the foundry to see her, went, ah, they loved her. I had put so much beauty and love into that face. They saw it, but it didn't matter.
Audrey, the New York Times did an article about it, didn't they?
Yeah.
I wish I had pictures to show everyone. Her face is so remarkable.
It was in the Times almost every day, and it was sprung on me the day before Christmas that, anyhow, it was melted down for scrap metal.
I'll send everyone a link to the New York Times so they can see. Jenny's got,
There's an article that just came out 2 days ago in the East Hampton newspaper, which I can't seem to get. I knew it was a matter of time before somebody picked it up, and I've sort of been waiting for the Times to call me and thinking I'm not even going to answer it because it was the first victim of what's going on.
Right.
And, you know, there are all sides to the story.
Sure.
You know, we've been horrible to African Americans. So you get a little thing about Queen Catherine, but you live through it and talk about resilience. You just, you know, can't let it kill you. Yeah. Although it did for a couple of years, I gotta tell you.
Audrey, I do have some images of some of your goddesses that I'd like to share with everyone. I have Medusa, and let's see if I can do it. I've got this one. Is that Medusa?
That's my sweet Medusa. 13 years old, maybe 14 or 15 when she was killed.
She's beautiful. And then I also have the American Athena, who is so strong and so beautiful, so athletic and powerful. And then I also have, this is ours, this is Medea. And you can see where she lives in our vault. Bob took these pictures on Monday, see her from the front and the back. And so, Audrey, I wanted to ask you about the story of Medea and what captivated you about Medea. Here's another view of her. And
oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
Tell me what all of you know or have heard about Medea. Can you, anybody just tell me quickly, what's the story?
Does anybody want to unmute themselves and talk about Medea?
Unmute yourselves. Come on, we're all here. We're all girls. We can talk. What have you heard in the air? What's the buzz about her for centuries?
Do you guys want me to say something?
Sure.
Medea did the worst, right? She killed her children.
The worst, the lowest.
Right.
You agree? Does everybody agree? Is that what you heard?
Oh, Sarah. Sarah's talking. Go, Sarah, unmute yourself. Can't hear you.
No, I'm not aware. So this is.
Well, you weren't aware of her.
I've heard her name. I've heard of her, but not in depth. So I apologize.
Well, you know about Eve, how bad Eve was to give Adam the apple. And Jezebel, very bad. Well, Medea is the worst of any woman that has ever lived because she did the worst thing that anyone ever did. She killed her own children. That's pretty bad, right? So you mention her name and shudders run through you. And I was at a time when I was examining these stories. We won't go into the Medusa story, but there's another big story about her. So here's Medea. I'll tell you about Medea. Let's put her picture up while I talk about her. Can you? Oh, good. I love that one where she's looking up. She was the granddaughter of the sun god of Helios. So she's part goddess. She's part human, part goddess. And she's the daughter of King Aertes, a princess. So she's a princess from a dark and unknown city named Colchis. Colchis is, do you ever hear of Georgia? Not Georgia in the United States, but Georgia near Russia. There is a place called Georgia. And that's where the city of Colchis was. She was a sorceress. She had magic powers, this woman. She had superior intelligence. She was beautiful. And she had the gift of healing and astronomy. She could stir the oceans into turbulent waves. She could calm storms. She could restore life to the dead. She was an amazing, amazing character. So she had darker skin, not unlike Queen Catherine. You know, this is a very political story. I'm going to let someone else answer the phone. It's very political, and I really should write it, I'll tell you. My agent, my book agent wants me to write it. I just, there's just not time. Somebody's got to deal with this. So she has a kind of swarthy dark skin. She has curls. She has lots of hair. And she's standing by the ocean. And she sees this ship come in. It's Jason, who's blue-eyed, blonde hair, Athenian. She's never seen anybody like that. And he's gorgeous. He's a hunk. And he's got the Argonauts, and they've been battered by a storm. They're in very bad shape. The boat is about to be overturned, and she falls for this beautiful man. And with her powers, stops the storm, saves the ship, saves Jason's life, tends to the sick sailors, and that's it. Why is Jason there? You've heard of the Golden Fleece? What is the Golden Fleece? I never knew what the Golden Fleece is. The Golden Fleece is a solid chunk of gold in the shape of a lamb's fleece. That sounds really silly, doesn't it? But that's what it is. And it's sort of the core of the city, the power of the city. Jason is there to steal it. So, you know, what's the symbolism of Jason? Power, money, fame, glory, very male attributes. He's going to come steal this. Well, the Golden Fleece belongs to her father, to her city. She is so in love that she agrees to help him. And here's the story. God, I hope this isn't going to be hard to tell, because myths have many sides. Side written by the patriarchy always makes the woman horrible. But then you uncover things, and there are certain men and certain writers that write other things, write other truths. So I'm giving you what I have gleaned from a lot of it, including new stuff I found out at 2 in the morning. In order to steal the golden fleece, he has to kill dragons with 100 heads. He has to go through various paces. She mixes a magic potion, puts the dragons to sleep, tells Jason what to do, guides them through the whole thing. He steals it. She also is supposed to have killed her own brother, because on their way escaping, going to Corinth, she chops up her brother's body, dumps it in the water, and her father, the king, stops to pick up the pieces of the body to give him a proper burial. That slows his boat down so Jason and Medea and the rest of the crew can escape. That's a story written by patriarchy, okay? Which I accepted, which everybody accepts. Okay. Another part of the story is that the father really killed his own son, because the son was second in line to the throne, and the father didn't want to lose the throne. So they pin a lot has been pinned on Medusa. A lot has been pinned on women. You know, if we start looking at this and look at your own life, a lot has been pinned on us. Okay, let's go. So they sail away, and they live together for 10 years, and they have many children, not just 2, but Euripides only writes about 2. Interestingly, she has twin boys. One is blonde and blue-eyed and fair-skinned and slight of build, and the other one is dark-skinned, brown eyes, black curly hair, and solid. Prejudice, already prejudice against the darker one. Fascinating political story. Somebody's got to write a book. Okay. Here she is, and she is, there are other myths that refer to many more children, including daughters, which she does have. So the haughty Corinthians are the equivalent of the Athenians. They're very haughty, and again, blue-eyed blondes. And they look down on the rough, emotional migrants from Colchis. And Medusa has a very proud demeanor. And in this highly male-dominated city, they don't like that. I mean, they're already looking at her. She walks through the streets with confidence. She holds her head high. Her hair is loose and flowing. Well, have you seen Roman and Greek statues? The women always have these tight buns, right? And they're very tight, and the women resent it because who the heck is she to walk around with her hair flowing like that, with her head up, right? When she doesn't know the right place for women. Corinth gets into trouble. It's visited by droughts and floods, fires like now, famine and plagues. How do you like that? But wherever the disaster strikes, Medea is there, like these workers in the hospitals. She's there healing the sick, helping them out. And they have to find a scapegoat. Why is this happening to their city? Why are people dying? It's her fault. They blame her. Because she is there, they blame her. Okay, because she's unfamiliar, she's an outsider, they need a scapegoat. Rumors start circulating, and she is run through the streets by angry mobs. This woman. She's a victim of repression and sexism. She gets betrayed not only by her enemies, but by those she helped, who are afraid of the consequences, like what's happening politically, right? They're afraid of the consequences of breaking free from the restrictions that bind them. Now, the king, Creon, has an astronomer. He tries to warn Medea. He's on Medea's side. But the mobs are still chasing her. Jason, her husband, he wants status. He wants safety. Everybody's against Medea. And he arranges to marry the king's daughter. Guess what? She's blonde and blue-eyed. And very young and very naive. And he's going to marry the king's daughter, and he says, Medea, get out of here. Tomorrow, you have to leave tomorrow with the children. She's devastated. And grief-stricken. I'm just going to read you the first paragraph of her soliloquy that Euripides writes. She says, women of Corinth. Notice, she's appealing to the women. Women of Corinth, I have come outside to you, lest you should be indignant with me. For I know that many people are overproud. Some went alone and others went in company. But on me, this thing has fallen so unexpectedly, it has broken my heart. I am finished. I let go of all my life's joy. My friends, I only want to die. It was everything to me to think well of one man. And he, my own husband, has turned out wholly vile. Of all things which are living and can form a judgment, we women are the most unfortunate of creatures. I mean, I could read you the rest. It's fantastic what she says. She's amazing. And she said, you want to hear a little more? Or is it too much?
Wait,
Tell me.
You're captivated. Keep going.
Oh, well, the whole thing is too long, but first we need a husband, someone we get for an excessive price. He then becomes the ruler of our bodies. Can you imagine saying this then? And this misfortune adds still more troubles to the grief we have. Then comes the crucial struggle. This husband we've elected, is he good or bad? For a divorce loses women all respect. Yet we can't refuse to take a husband. Then, when she goes into her husband's home with its new rules and different customs, she needs a prophet's skill to sort out the man whose bed she shares. So, I mean, here she is, this incredibly powerful, strong woman. She's not like the namby-pamby. And she moves into Corinth and has to act like these other women. Once we've worked hard at this, and with success, our husband accepts the marriage yoke and lives in peace, an enviable life. But if the marriage doesn't work, then death is much to be preferred. When the man tires of the company he keeps at home, he leaves, seeking relief for his distress elsewhere. Wait a minute, I have the rest. He gets his satisfaction with some male friend or someone his own age, a younger woman. We women have to look at just one man. Men tell us we live safe and secure at home, while they must go to battle with their spears. How stupid they are. I'd rather stand there 3 times in battle, holding up my shield, than give birth once. I'm going to stop there. There's more, but isn't she marvelous?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens is Medea is bereft. He kicks her out. I mean, she's going to starve to death. She has no money, no food, nothing to feed her children, has to leave without anything. And she said, please give me another day. I just need another day. I can't leave immediately. And they give her another day. She takes that day and she weaves a golden dress, wedding dress, for Glauce, the king's daughter. But in it is poison. She makes a mixture because she's a sorceress. And she has her 2 sons deliver the dress to the king's daughter. And she said, after you deliver the dress, run to Athena's temple and hide. And they do it. Glauce picks up this magnificent dress, puts it on, and it sets fire. And she starts to burn alive. Her father, King Creon, jumps on her to put out the fire. He gets burned alive. Jason stands there, watches the whole thing, impotent, unable to move. Now, many aspects to this. The story we know is that Medusa, in retaliation for Jason leaving her, kills her children, kills her 2 twin sons. The story I'm telling you from what I've read and gleaned is different. The Corinthians, enraged about what happened to their princess, to their king, angry at Medea anyhow for who she is, suspicious of dark-skinned people with curly brown hair, go to the temple and stone Medea's children to death. They kill Medea's children. Word gets out that the Corinthians killed Medea's children. And people don't want to go to Corinth. They're awful people. They get a bad reputation. Trade stops. The city is doing badly. What do? They hire Euripides, the great writer. Euripides, we're going to give you $30 extra. Write a play that blames her. Euripides writes one of the greatest plays of all time. Puts the blame on Medea for killing her children. That is the story we know. That is not the real story. That is Euripides' version. That's what centuries have believed about Medea. We have to redeem her. So, did Medea kill her own children? I don't think so. Not at all. Did Medea murder her brother? I don't think so. Did she even put poison in the dress for Glauce? I don't know about that. It's a incredibly powerful myth. She is a real, wonderful, strong woman. Probably with a very sturdy body. I think if I was to sculpt her body, she'd have more girth. And that's my take on Medea. And I welcome you to think about her with respect and love, and get all that awful stuff off her back.
Audrey, this is so wonderful, and it puts this work in our collection in such a new perspective for all of us. I got a message from one of our staff members, Nan, who asked about Medea's beautifully sculpted open lips. And I know you've talked—
Her sculpted what?
Her lips.
Her lips.
How they are parted. And I know you've talked to me about how she wants to speak. Can you talk about her face and her lips and what she would say?
I think she would say what I've been saying, and that she wants all of you to redeem her. You know, she suffered for centuries. Centuries she's had a bad rap. It's about time, you know, that we rose up and got the story straight. So here you are, you know, with me this morning, and each of you carries a voice. You carry a voice to your friends, to your children, to your husbands and friends, and male and female friends. And we've got to straighten things out. And it's up to us. So she's asking.
Audrey, thank you so much. This is so powerful and wonderful. I just have a couple more questions for you, and then I'm going to turn it over to the group to see if anybody has any questions. I wanted to ask you two things. I'd like to ask about the role of story in your work. You talked about Medea's story and Medusa's story and Catherine's story. Story seems so intertwined, especially with the sculptural work you do, but I also see it in your photorealism as well, and with Days of Reckoning, which we'll look at in a minute. Can you talk about the role of story and also the role of research, because you're such a reader and such a researcher? How does that connect for you with your process as an artist?
Heather, you're amazing. I never thought of it that way. I never heard that word stories in relation to my work. And yes, of course, there are stories. Thank you, Heather.
Oh, thank you.
Something else to think about, but yeah, there are stories. And even in the Marilyn painting, it's written. It's written. You know, if you read about Marilyn, she never felt loved. And she had a mother who was mentally ill and was in an orphan home and ran away. And there's a story, you know, we all have stories.
Yeah.
But you're right. I have to think about it. I have to process it. Yes, there are stories behind almost every single. You know what I've done a lot that I've realized too? I feel really strongly about what we've done to Native Americans. You know, this country has a lot of amends to make. And when I grew up, you saw these cowboy and Indian movies, right? And the Indians had hatchets, and they're always, cowboys are good. But what we've done to them is terrible. I realize without fully constructing a story about it, many of my sculptures have elements of Native American, particularly the ones in front of courthouses. Nobody's ever written about it. I've snuck it in, because they always want a statue of justice to be Greek and to hold the scales, you know. I always have Indian braids, feathers somewhere, because where more than in front of a courthouse should that be?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've already got questions coming through the chat box for you, but I do want to ask you one more question. And I'd like to share Days of Reckoning with everyone too, if I can do that again. Audrey, you're 88 years old.
No, I'm 89 now.
89.
Turned 89 May 30th. Can you believe it's like, it's shocking and it's frightening. You know, I'm really facing mortality.
Right, right.
Which we all have to do from the minute we're born, but somehow we manage not to look at it because it's so hard. Yeah. But I'm forced to every day now.
Yeah. But, you know, at 89 years old, you are continuing to push the envelope. What you just finished with this painting, this monumental painting you've been working on for the past 4 years is incredible. So my question to you, and I'm going to try to share this with everyone. Can you guys see that yet? No.
Yeah.
You can see it. This is Days of Reckoning. So my question to you is, what motivates you and inspires you? What keeps you going? What do you think it is that allows you to keep pushing the envelope?
I think for each of us, you know, we have something that keeps us going. Sometimes when I'm really down and out, I knit. I play my banjo or ukulele, but the essence of what keeps me going throughout life and what has is art. There's something about it that when I look at it, I get nourished. I can deal with mortality when I look at great art. And when I make it, you know, I have a wonderful time making this painting. During those 4 years, my husband fell down the steps and had to have several brain operations and has never been the same. My house a pipe broke and it got flooded. And then I got sick from the whole thing. My daughter broke her hip. I mean, but every time I went back to that painting, I could go on. The painting is based on Durer's Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And it started 4 years ago in reaction to global warming. Hey, are you hot there, as hot as we are here?
Miserable.
We're like 96 to 100 degrees here.
Yeah, I don't even know what it is today, but it's hot.
It's crazy here. So it started with global warming, and then as the years went on, it became emblematic of what we're going through. So here's the horseman on top holding the scales, and he represents pestilence. I didn't like the other horseman, so I just have him, and there's green goo that's spilling out of the scales. You see it? And it's spilling onto this pudgy little plump fat girl who's hanging on to a can of Coke that's spilling out. And the words Coke and crack, I thought of this opioid epidemic that we're going through, right? And Coke is so wonderful and good for you. It's got Coke in it. All right, and so it's underneath that is death on a pale horse, which is kind of a very skinny horse. And there are two little children, you see them? And they're one is in phosphorescent green and the other one is in a kind of blue. Shocked, terrified. What are we doing to our poor children? And the pale horse of death is riding over a clergy. He's probably a bishop. whose head is in the mouth of some strange dragon. That is from Dürer. And you think of, you know, the problems of the Catholic Church with what has happened with sexual abuse. And here are the horses on cement fire, the fires in Australia. And here's the flood down below, and here's a boat sinking in the waters of the tsunami. And here's a poor girl climbing out of the water with phosphorescent goo dripping from her body, you know. Pandemic fluids, pandemic breathing, and 2 more children. The little boy is hanging onto a raindrop as if that could save him. And that famous Hokusai wave. And gold bricks falling down from this corrupt capitalist society, crashing down. And a poem by a wonderful friend of mine from Sag Harbor. And the painting goes from left to right. They've already caused disaster. They're going towards the right, but there's a rainbow in a poem. And the painting is lighter on the right side. And there's hope. I think there is hope. So I've got good news about that painting because there's a German collector that just acquired it. So I'm happy. I'm happy about that.
Yay.
And Audrey, what are the dimensions of the painting?
It's 6 by 8 feet.
Whew. Amazing.
Wow.
So I had to climb up and down a ladder, and I thought, you're crazy, you're 89, you better hold on, because I don't have the kind of agility that I had when I was younger. And I had to be very careful, but I did it.
It's amazing. We are getting so many questions in the chat box, Audrey. Everybody wants to ask you a question. So, so Susan asked, can you describe your technical process in Days of Reckoning? Susan, that is the one that you wanted to ask about, right?
My technical process. A lot of times, you know, I teach anatomy and drawing, so I can draw really well. But I found over the years that in certain instances, it's faster and I can get along, I can do the work, concentrate on other things if I use a projection for the dimensions. And I did. I did because I can do it the other way. I think it's very important to be able to do it. It's very important to learn how to draw. That's why my favorite teaching is drawing and anatomy. That's what you've got to know. So I did that, and then I found a wonderful instrument. It's like a Sharpie pen, but it's not Sharpie. You can take it apart and you can fill it with liquid acrylic paint. It's messy, it's annoying, but I could draw with the acrylic paint. And now I just found a new kind. And I encourage my students, try new things, try new colors. I love iridescent colors. I'm having a lot of enjoyment. I'm enjoying the process.
I love that. Okay, so we have another question from Christine. She wants to know, do you research the subject before creating the art? So for instance, with Medea, did you research Medea first before creating the art, or did it happen in tandem?
I don't think so. I remember with Medusa started it all. I was looking at Cellini's Medusa, that's in the Loggia in Piazza Signoria in Florence. Put up your hand if you've seen it. Has anybody been to Florence and saw it? No? Oh yeah. And you know, the statue is fabulous. Cellini is great, But I looked at her face and I said, she's beautiful. She's not ugly. Why are they saying she's ugly? And then I began reading about her. And it made me look at other things. I think I love the Greek dramas. I love Euripides. I must have read it. I was very moved by her soliloquy. Oh, to be born a woman, right? But a lot of the times, you know, I love Durer with the Four Horsemen. Hi, honey. Wait. Hold on a minute. Gotta give my husband a kiss.
Oh. We can all relate to that. Audrey, I think you're muted.
Okay. All right. So here we go.
All right, I've got another question for you from Bobby. Bobby says, Medea's eyes, though somewhat blank, are still full of emotion and very powerful. Is it difficult to bring life to the eyes in sculpture?
Yes, but you do it, and it's not just the eyes, it's the eyebrows and the folds and the lines under the eyes and the shape. You know, with sculpture, when you do pupils, and you know how when you look at your eyes, it's always, they're shiny, the whites of your eyes, and the pupil is really a hole. But when light reflects on your eye, there's always a little bead of light, a spot of light. How do you do that in sculpture? You don't have white paint, you know. And Houdin was a master. So I studied that. Oh my God, when it comes to eyes, are they blank? Am I gonna have pupils? Where's the white? You know, how big are the pupils? Complex, that's wonderful.
So Susan wanted to say thank you so much for that information about the technical process of Days of Reckoning. She says, I have trouble with painting, definitely looking into getting some of those paint pens.
Definitely what?
Looking into getting some of those paint pens that you recommend.
Yes. The ones I use are called Molotow, M-O-L-O-T-O-W. There's another brand that's no good, but a new brand just came out, a Japanese one, and I don't remember the name of it. But these are, the Japanese brand are already filled with paint. The problem there is, if you use like a black instrument with black paint, when I run out of paint, I have a whole jar of high flow, it's called high flow acrylic by Golden. I could just refill it.
Yeah.
The new brand, they're very tricky. They like money. It's already filled, but when you're finished, you got to buy a new one. So it costs you a lot more money, but it's easier, and they have great colors. I hope it helped.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Audrey, I could talk to you all day. This is so fun, but I know we're taking up your time, and we are just so grateful. Any more questions from anyone? Our executive director, Ann Brennan, is here. Candy says, thoroughly enjoyable, enlightening presentation. You are a remarkable person and artist. I look forward to learning more about your work. Christine says, thank you for your time. So Audrey, we're so grateful.
Thank you.
One parting question.
You are wonderful. You brought up things like stories and feminism, things that I had never really thought of that way.
That's so nice of you to say that. Well, call me anytime. I'd love to talk about the stories that I see in your work. I'm so captivated by your work, Audrey. Let's see, Bonnie says, thank you for giving us the stories we can share about your work and vision. Bonnie's one of our docents, so she will share Medea's story with all of our school children and all the people that come, well, that we get to see virtually this year during the pandemic. Susan says, again, so much thanks and admiration for you.
Well, thank you very, very much. I'll take Medea and let's bring her up. I wished you could have made a postcard of her so everybody could have a postcard and just love her.
I like that idea. I've got a question from Debbie for Anne. Anne, can you talk about how we acquired Medea?
Absolutely, my pleasure. So much about progress and any advancement in our life has to do with love and relationships. And Audrey, perhaps Audrey will tell the story of her long friendship with the art historian Tony Jansen. Tony was very much in the life of the museum and a very important benefactor for us. And we still have a small collection. We have deep core collections of work by North Carolina artists, but it was Tony's desire for our collection to grow up. And in order to do that, there needed to be strong work by American artists. And Audrey, absolutely, Tony was convinced that her work had to be in our collection. And a good bit of that had to do with his in-depth study of her work and his friendship with you, as I understand, Audrey. Do you want to tell a little bit?
I love Tony. I love Tony. I miss him a lot.
Yes,
So
Tony's health is not good, for the record. So
he's not good?
No, ma'am. He's not. He's physically safe, but he suffers with mental illness now.
Yeah.
But he is such a believer, staunch believer in you and your work. And we do know the tome, The History of Art, written by H.W. Jansen. We know that big thick book from the 50s that, well, H.W. is Tony's father. And H.W.'s work focuses on the work of white male artists. And Tony really devoted the majority of his career to editing his father's work to include work by women and people of color. And Audrey, were you one of his new additions to focus on your work was one of the leading important editions of work by not only women, but contemporary living American practicing working women. And Audrey was at the top of Tony's list.
Well, yeah, Tony, we have to say that Tony's father, Horst, was a very strict German, sturdy guy, powerful man. Tony is so slight and frail, right? And Tony, to me, always looked like a Spanish Baroque saint, skinny little. And Abrams had just published my book on painting. And they were having a party at the College Art Association, they were having a party celebrating Horst Jansen's retirement. And incidentally, my book. And I was near the great Horst Jansen. You just looked up to this great dignified art historian. And so we were in an elevator. I was in an elevator with a friend of mine, art historian, at the College Art Association, and the elevator was crowded. I did not know that the man in back of me was little Tony Jansen. But I was carrying on because we're on our way up to this dinner for Horst and me. And I was saying how angry I was at this art historian, Horst Jansen, who didn't have one woman in the entire history of art book that he wrote for many years. Not one woman. And he didn't even have Mary Cassatt. And I'm carrying on, kind of stupidly, not knowing who's in the elevator, having no idea that Tony, the son of Horst Jansen, who I'm putting down, is behind me. And how could he leave Mary Cassatt out? And I love Mary Cassatt. I remember seeing a Mary Cassatt postcard. That's why I say postcard. My high school art teacher put it up on the board. I didn't know who she was. I loved it. Something in it got to me. I was a kid. And I said, he's got all those Gauguins in the book. He doesn't have one Mary Cassatt. How could he do that? Doors open. We go, get off on the floor. We go into the area. And at dessert time, they had dessert. They had little tables. You took your dessert over to a little table. And this very slight young man comes over and introduces himself. And I thought I would die. At any rate, I carried on about Mary Cassatt. Little did I know that Tony was taking over the book from the father. And he put Mary Cassatt in. First woman. And he put me in. So we were the first women. And, you know, life happens in mysterious ways, doesn't it? But we have to do this for each other. You know, if we don't do this for each other, who's going to do it?
That's right. Audrey, thank you so much. I've got a couple more comments from people. Kim says, we are so privileged to have your work in Wilmington. Nan says, we can do that, the postcard. She actually manages our shop, so I know she can do it. And
oh, well, you got to send me a couple.
I will. And she says, thank you for your incredible portrayals of strength and beauty. Corinne says, awesome woman. This was great. Yes, Audrey, what were you going to say?
I'm just saying, if we do the postcard, if you do the postcard, on the other side, make sure one of you just puts in, did she really kill her children? Or, you know, she was some little comment to make people think, not something besides the picture. Okay, what do you think about that?
We'll do it. I think we've got a book to write.
We do. Oh, more and more I know we have to with images. You know, images, how has she been portrayed through the centuries?
Yeah, absolutely. Jenny Wright Frierson says, Audrey, stay well. Keep creating. We need you more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Donna says, thank you. I feel transformed. Ned says, thank you for speaking about Tony. He is a great scholar and human. And Susan says, can't wait to show my kids my own Jansen's book and you in it. So thank you, everyone. I know I could keep going on, and Audrey, I won't keep you forever. This has been such a joy. And y'all, Sarah's showing pictures of Audrey's work, if you can see her, from a book.
Well, there's a little book I wrote 20, 30 years ago called Art and Soul. It's this big, there's no pictures in it. Maybe your bookstore will get it because I think it's a good book.
It's a wonderful.
Thank you all so much. It's good for me, so I hope it was for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mwah.